Here's the other thing. Bremont, buzzing the tower. Guys, I've got to say, we haven't had like a conflagration in the comment threads really ever. But there was a whole lot of discussion last time we talked about the new Bremont 1918 chronograph. Honestly, I can't remember the last time we had this much feedback underneath the video. So I thought this is an opportunity for Monday Mailbag to circle round, to use another Bremont-style aviation term, and talk about something that clearly struck a chord. Okay, let's start with some of the basics. For those of you who weren't with us on Friday, Bremont released a new limited edition watch last week. 43 millimeters across all versions, 11,495 in steel. 21,495 in rose gold with black dial, which I thought was slick. And this is the one I love enough that if I weren't on a mono-brand spending spree, I would actually consider buying. But 22,995 in white gold with blue dial. Oh my gosh, I love it. All COSC movements, automatic 7750 based at the highest spec, customized with GMT function and date. Obviously, you're getting a lot of functionality with the compound complications, but some people had trouble with the price, which I'll admit is very bold. But here's the thing. I thought they looked good, and I commented that these are charismatic watches for a narrow audience. 75 pieces in each of the golds. I don't see any problem selling these. Looks do matter, guys. People said, what about the movements you so cherish, Tim? These are not movement watches. To which I say, first of all, a regulated ETA has cut a rut every year at the Hublot chronometry competition alongside the likes of JLC and Grubel Forsey. So don't underestimate a well-regulated ETA. They can do unbelievable things that border on sorcery. You can set records with a well-regulated ETA, and you'll miss them when they're gone. I'll also say this is like a case in point, albeit I'm appropriating something from outside horology, but a question of value. Is it objective or constructed? Alexander Wendt would love this. You can Wikipedia him after. Stay tuned. That's right, don't touch that dial. Okay, he would love this discussion because we're talking about building up the idea of value from nothing. Let's start with this. Constructed value in the watch space. Okay, almost all watches cost somewhere between 5 and 15% of their MSRP to make. Whether you're talking about pieces with Geneva hallmark and high horology or rote mass-produced pieces from mass brands. Most of what you pay is your imagined sense of the value of the watch. And I will also say that you have to love the way it looks, and that's the first part to accepting the price of a watch. I would not have bought my Duomet if I couldn't get it in white gold with a black dial. The yellow gold version with the eggshell cream dial, to me, was an example of an old man's watch composed for an old man audience. I wasn't interested, no matter how fine it was. It took this look to turn a watch I thought was kind of cool into a grail. And I think this Bremont, for a lot of folks, is going to strike a chord. Here's the thing. Once you've accepted that the watch you love, regardless of brand, costs 10% of its MSRP to make, we're all accepting that this is basically a silly hobby. And if you were to tell a friend outside the hobby that you spent $5,000 on a watch, any watch, they'd be like,
you're crazy.
I once had a dinner where someone Googled my watch and found out what it cost, and the dinner went from kind of nice to normal to weird very quickly. So we're all nuts, okay?
Yeah.
And let's consider that Bremont normally builds cost-effective watches, so there's no point in getting angry at them. What do they normally build? Let's take a look at flyers, drivers, and divers watches. Bremont Martin Baker MB2. Giles and Nick English, the founders and owners, told me this is the one you've got to own if you have just one Bremont. What does it cost? An outrageous $4,995. Okay, the Jaguar Mark III. Are you ready? $4,795. And if you like to get your Bremont wet, first of all, they're all 100 meters water resistant minimally, but a Supermarine S500 with a sapphire capped bezel and a date function, it's going to run you about $4,495. So if you're looking for the British Breitling, here's your value play. For those who want something a little bit special and spectacular, I see no problem here with the 1918 chronograph. Small brand, small market, small audience for these watches in precious metal. And yeah, depreciation is a big thing, but why be a hater when you can so easily find something you might love? There's too little time in life to hate watches you're not planning to buy. So if you're ranting, if you're raving, you're wasting your time and energy. I'll also say this. Bremont offers fair prices on its mainstream pieces, and that white gold edition of 75 should have no trouble finding homes. I mean, this is seriously slick. And there seems to be a lot of angst over the ETA caliber, which obviously isn't built by Bremont. But remember, there is so much more to the value that goes into a watch than the caliber source. First, like the spec. This is highly customized and chronometer spec. If they wanted to sell the thing for $5,500, Sellita SW500, base level, solid case back, done. But they've also built themselves a factory for constructing cases, and they've done it in England. They've built themselves an assembly plant in Henley-on-Thames and hired British watchmakers, which, other than the late George Daniels and Roger Smith and Peter Speake-Marin, kind of didn't exist before they started investing in it. They've spent a ton of money on design and fabrication and research and development and taking the process in-house. Everything from final regulation to assembly, quality control, in-house service. All of this costs money, and that's part of what goes into these watches. Finally, if you have a problem with high value and exotic watches that don't have in-house calibers, consider the automotive world. Do we wish that the Pantera, the Facel Vega HK500, the Land Rover Defender, or this one from Texas didn't exist? Because none of these have in-house power plants, and I'm pretty sure all of us would agree they're worth the asking price. In some cases, the asking price and then some. Why? Charisma, style, and soul. And I think this Bremont 1918 has it. If you don't like the idea of a $22,000 Bremont, buy not. But who buys these watches? Fans of the brand.